What's up? It's your boy Carcino here, and let's talk about it. The truth behind the beef with Vince McMahon and the Ultimate Warrior. Now, when WWF, when it was called WWE, it was at one time, most of you children probably don't remember, but it was called WWF, the World Wrestling Federation, ran by Vince McMahon, who bought out his father's company and changed it and changed the whole platform actually with a very strategic business move, using tape matches and putting them on television. Now, here's the ordeal. The biggest thing he had as a rival was the Midwest wrestling circuit crossed in Texas. And those guys were they were known as the Crockett family. Davy Crockett, the other Crockett, the two Crockett brothers, they owned the National Wrestling Alliance, World Championship Wrestling. And their biggest asset, a lot of people think it was Ric Flair at the time. Like Ric Flair is it. Their biggest commodity asset at that time were the Road Warriors. The Hulk and Animal from Chicago, Illinois, the Road Warriors came in with Iron Man. So when Iron Man used to come on, everybody would get lit. The match would last about maybe 3 minutes of just high energy wrestling moves. Nobody cared who they were fighting. The Road Warriors be throwing these guys above their heads. They coming out with spiked shoulders, mohawks, and paint on their face. Sorry, had to burp. Now, the Road Warriors were crowd pleasing. They got the crowd hype. They were energized. Ever since then, Vince wanted to buy them. And you guys gonna be like, wait, how did this? We thought we were talking about the Ultimate Warrior. Just wait, we'll get there. Vince wanted to buy the Road Warriors, and they couldn't get it done. The Crockett's would not sell them. So they kept staying. No matter what the offer was, they would stay with WCW. So what they did with National Wrestling Alliance was try to add on. And when they added on, you had wrestlers like Sting, but there was another wrestler who they tried to branch off the Road Warrior name, a wrestler who was a bodybuilder who got tired of losing and working out all these hours and losing in bodybuilding competition. Name, they forgot his name, real name, but they gave him the name the Dingo Warrior. So wrestling under the Dingo name got a lot of attention. You know, he really didn't catch Vince's eye or anything. But once it upset it, Animal from the Road Warriors, he was upset with the National Wrestling Alliance because they were cloning them. So they go to the Crockett's, they're upset. The Road Warriors are not, they're unhappy. So Vince sees this as an opportunity where he could use to get the Road Warriors because of this Dingo Warrior. They were upset and they was like, we don't want this guy. Everybody thinks he's part of the Road Warriors. He's not with us. So it was a big melee. And they had to part ways with the Dingo Warrior. because the Road Warriors didn't want him. And they chose to keep the Road Warriors happy. And Vince said, ha, this is my key. Let me get and borrow, let's try to get this Dingo Warrior in here. So he goes to the WWF. And for his audition there, he comes in. Vince hates the name. Dingo War. What is a dingo? He didn't even know what a dingo was. Says it's stupid. It's dumb. You're just a warrior. Let's just call it that. He was like, no, we got so many warriors right now. Listen, I'm the ultimate warrior. So he went down as the ultimate warrior. And once he got on the scene, he was electric. The ultimate warrior was electric. He did all these moves. The way he did his monologues, no one knew what he was talking about. But he had so much energy that people gravitated to him. This was exactly what Vince needed. Now, everybody else was not like the Ultimate Warrior. Every other wrestler that they had that was Warrior with their name, they were just a slab of meat with no personality. And all the other guys who came in with the rock music and the hair, they normally wasn't too masculine. They couldn't really take a beating or dish it out. They did it with finesse. Not the Ultimate Warrior. He was the guy came out with the rock music. Bum, 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 bum. He comes out charging 100 miles an hour, shaking the ropes. Kids is all into it. This is what Vince wants. This is it. Now he got it. Now, the big money drawer and the highest paid in the WWF was Hulk Hogan and Randy the Macho Man Savage. They were the draws. They were the guys that were going to bring the people in to see. They were the stars. Ultimate Warrior was still under his contract that he signed. But for some reason, he wanted to deviate from things. Then comes 1990, I want to say 91. In 1991, we had a major problem. Titan Sports was formed, where under a lot of scrutiny from the gaming commissions and the athletic department, wrestling had to declare itself as sports entertainment and not to be classified as a sport. But by coming out with Titan Sports, now they're going to be more scrutinized for like performance enhancing drugs at this time. You know, Hulk Hogan and Warrior, they were gotten very close at one point to a point where they worked out a little bit together and ejected each other with, allegedly, with steroid syringes. And the Warriors growing big, all these guys, Rick the Model Martel, Lenny Poffo, who turned himself into the genius once he started taking stuff and started getting all built up. All of these guys were on the juice and everybody was applauding it. It was pushed throughout the Wrestling Federation and they had to do a crackdown once they did Titan Sports. The Ultimate Warrior failed a test for performance enhancing drugs and they had to sit him down for a while. So this led to problem number one. Then after a performance in WrestleMania or whatever against the Macho Man, he was very upset because Macho Man made so much money, but it was in Macho Man's contract. He had a very good contract. The Warrior didn't. The Warrior's like, I don't care. Vince is gonna pay me, or I'm not gonna perform. So the Warrior was again suspended for trying to extort Vince McMahon. You don't extort Vince McMahon. Now, this is what it's called professionalism. He was scheduled to show up to an event. He said his father died, and that was the reason why. And then people's like, it had nothing to do with that. Him and his father weren't even close anyway. But they still eventually suspended him, and he didn't show up, and he didn't notify them till it was almost too late. So Vince was very hot about that. So the Ultimate Warrior was eventually relieved of duty till his contract expired. And once his contract expired, he was fair game. He was out there, but he was just fair game. Anybody could get the Warrior. So they actually did a rematch with him and Hulk Hogan years later in the WCW because him and Hogan were still pretty cool with each other. And he said, hey, I'll have the WCW, Ted Turner, they'll pick up the rest of your contract and pay you for like a match. Me and you will do a pay-per-view event, and it was the Ultimate Warrior. And he came back, made one event. It was a terrible, terrible match. The return of the Ultimate Warrior, because he wasn't really going to stick around. The Warrior was pretty much done at that time. But that's why Vince wanted to stick it to him each chance he got. But over time, just like anything, Vince is what people think is Vince is an animal, he's really not. He's a wrestling guy. This guy dedicated himself to wrestling. He even worked out. He threw himself in the ring. He lives and breathes WWE, which is the WWF. And no one athlete is going to be above that brand, above the company. And you're definitely not going to try to extort Vince McMahon. Did the Ultimate Warriors get a raw deal? Absolutely. And it caused him to suffer. Every time he kept doing something, it cost him to suffer. When he won the championship from Hulk Hogan, this was supposed to be the biggest thing in the world. Hogan was supposed to retire. You remember that? Hulk Hogan was supposed to retire, but he lost, and that was the end of the reign of Hulk Hogan. He lost to the Ultimate Warrior fair and square. No funny business. Now that he had lost that belt, you know what happened? They set it up because he was complaining. And it really wasn't that. Hogan movie career didn't really pop off the way he thought. So Hogan needed to come back and get some money. So here comes Hogan back. And when Hogan came back to the ring, less than a year later, the very next WrestleMania, Hogan is the main event because the country is going to war. And for the first time ever, WWF at that time was going to be streaming live for the troops. So when they had the opportunity, they had to make this play and this move. So they explained it to the Warrior. You'll get a chance to be champion again. Don't worry about it. We're not going to have a reign of champions like we did with Hogan holding it for 3 years. The most somebody might have it is a year. Then we're going to let other people get opportunities to be heavyweight champion. what they did was saying, we need Hogan to get this belt. But first, we're going to give it to Sergeant Slaughter. Sergeant Slaughter, who ended up joining the Iraqis with Iron Sheik, all of a sudden becomes an Iraqi. And it was the weirdest WrestleMania event ever. I mean, the weirdest storyline you've ever seen in like Sergeant Slaughter becomes they have him come up with a way to steal the belt from the Ultimate Warrior. They make this WrestleMania. So Hulk Hogan is now, I am a real American's playing. He's got the red, white, blue flag on as he's facing the Iraqis. Hulk Hogan takes the Iraqi flag and rips it in half. All the troops are going crazy overseas. It was the craziest WrestleMania ever, but it didn't fit a wrestling plot line. This was made up of a real event that happened. So after this event was done, Warrior thought like, okay, when do I get my belt back? And that didn't happen for a while because his issues with his contract, his issues with Vince, he's looking at everybody else's money instead of his own. And we've seen that happen before, right? People looking at other people's money and saying, why is this person getting paid that? Uh-oh. All right, well, I got to go. I just knocked over a drink. Now I'm mad. I got to clean this up. Okay, I'm back after knocking that stuff over and cleaning that up. Sorry about that. Now, everyone believes that things got crossed over the contracts. But this was before the SummerSlam event that took place in which the Warrior got suspended and he didn't show up because of the contract dispute or his father's funeral and all of these things. And this is when Vince suspended him from the WWF. But here are the letters that went out 7 weeks prior. Okay? This is what the Ultimate Warrior wrote Vince McMahon. Vince, this is a different approach in expressing my feelings about the things we discussed the last 2 days under the pressure of television. Knowing that any second someone would be knocking on the door, etc. Every other avenue we tried, via phone, face to face, myself still walking away from unanswered questions, always put off till a later date, always with the same result, no result. Writing sometimes allows a person to express feelings or say things that don't come in conversation, such as we have. Some of the other things will once again become repetitive, so what I've heard in essence at least 1,000,000 times. I've tried to speak as a friend, but sometimes you don't hear me. I've spoken as a professional, but the direction always gets changed. No, you never let me leave without a response, but the words you speak never have any definitives. My whole life for the last 5 years has had no room for anything but definitive. But you always have the best way of time. Time to say, stew things over to work them your way. I've been from day one different from the others. I have sacrificed myself enough both in my personal life and physical well being. The fairness you say you want everyone to have is unfair to me. I grew in 5 years to become what the Ultimate Warrior is today, always questioning, but nonetheless taking him in a direction you want him to go at any particular time. Done what you would and has taken others 10 to 15 years. The point and suggestions you have made over the last 5 years were very well taken. Now I look at other individuals with less than one third the creativity, desire, and hunger I have, and wonder how can you look and see them as the one. For you as a friend, I pray all of the things you believe and rise to the surface and present themselves. Okay. Then there's the side that says, what the F, man? When I thought when I was thought of as the one, the topics of conversation were treat the veterans with respect. The veterans you spite are the very ones who will F it up for you. No matter, I listen. I would go into the ring, push myself to the brink of a heart attack, and you would say, when you go to the corner, smile. You spoke of the ultimate warrior appealing to all, old, young, ugly, beautiful, fat, skinny, black, white. A character who would show ups and downs, emotional and instinctive sensitivities and cold-heartedness when it was needed. Like a yo-yo, I was obligated so I could be the one. Where the hell are this man's ups and downs? Total jugular vein popping, yelling at all times. It is the total picture, character, and presentation that can be the one. I've learned with you to show intensity at this level, but also to show just as much intensity with the look of my eyes or with the whisper of the voice, or even better, extreme intensity and total silence. I did all you asked. The long term plan changed. At first, I was reluctant for what I believed were the right reasons. But once again, I went with that what I could believe in. Vince has never effed me. I dealt with what you thought was best, no matter what it cost me, no matter of the countless number of sleepless nights that were to come, no matter the number of times I had to knock on your door with questions I should never have had. For the last 2.5 years, I should have never had the questions I did to stand and make a videotaped apology for something I never did. Made me realize all we have is business. Once again, I went without sleep. If ever I do so again, it will be because I elect to, not because my wandering mind says to do so. In reaching this conclusion, I ask for these things. You say $500,000 for WrestleMania is unfair? Then I say the last 8.5 years of not being compensated equally when I meant as much or more to the company was total BS and most definitely unfair. I have sacrificed more than $500,000, more than $1 million, even more in monies that should have been paid to me, receiving equal compensation as Hulk. I paid my doggone dues long enough. I need not pay any more. I have given everything, and never once was there a knock on my effing door, whether to BS as a friend or help me through my times of need, or you trusting me to help you through yours. I ask these things, Vince, and the answers must come, for the next event is upon you. It has been for me the 5 years, and for you to tell me you need to evaluate whether or not I'm cost effective and this takes time is unfair. A show runs at a given time and date. I have always been there, never asking for time to see if I had to rest, food, whatever it takes to make it. Now I ask you the same of you. I want one $550,000 released from the monies allotted me to purchase my home. This would suffice as my WrestleMania 7 payoff. but let it be noted that it is not fair. I meant as much or as more to that show as Hulk. I deserve to be paid the same, and yeah, I know what Hulk gets. 2, 4 days off every other time off, period, except pay-per-views only. 3, I want the same pay cut as Hulk gets on pay-per-views, prime time, etc. The same cut, and I want the proof as such. I want the same pay cut that applies to Hulk, what he's been paid with in relationships to past events from WrestleMania 5, 6, 7, etc., when Hulk was the top draw. 4, the numbers and the proof of monies done on 1/900 Hulk, and likewise, I want the same pay cut. 5, I want the same pay cut on all forms of merchandising because I had to always knock on your door. Words alone are not good enough. I understand Doug Sage is on vacation. Call him, take his days, tell him to take his days off like you do to the boys and myself, and have it written. Every time I have knocked upon your door upon leaving, I have always apologized. I no longer feel I need a reason to apologize. Therefore, I will not. I have tried to speak as a friend, but maybe I do not have the qualities you require to seek me out as a friend. The videotaped apology was the icing on the cake. You see it is as a business, so whatever I like it or not, I must do the same. Whatever your decision, I can live with it. Till then, I remain home with the ones who care. Jim. Now, that's the Ultimate Warrior's long letter to Vince McMahon. So Vince got right to the point. This letter is in response to your This letter is in response to your facilitating to me July 10th, 1991. 1, you will be paid an amount of $550,000 for your participation in WrestleMania 7. 2, with the exception of special events only, you will receive 4 days off every time off, period. 3, your pay rate on house shows will increase from 4 to 5% of the net effective immediately, with the understanding that no one other WWF athlete will be paid at a higher rate. Likewise, or no other WWF athlete will be paid at a higher pay rate than you on pay-per-view events. Effective immediately, your royalty rate on all forms of merchandising is to be increased. The specified amount will not be determined in writing within 1 week. Your compensation for the Warrior 900 hotline will be identical of that of Hulk 900 hotline. Likewise, documentation for this will follow within 1 week. I regret the turmoil you put yourself through, and you're agonizing over what you feel is fair compensation. And even though we have our differences of opinion on some of these matters, I am resolved to work with you and the same honesty and inquebrable way that I always have. Furthermore, I would like to express to you my deepest appreciation and admiration for you as a performer, as a member of the WWF family, as a man, and as a friend. Vince. So Vince gave him everything he asked for. Everything he asked for. In writing, well, in a message. He didn't show up to the event, and it was canceled. He was fired. And later, they went back to using his likeness for Warrior shirts when he wasn't even wrestling. And he went back to try to sue for that. But nevertheless, Vince forgave him because he knew what, the Ultimate Warrior brought to the table. He knew this was a great addition to the family, to the wrestling family. And the day before he passed, for him to go into the Wrestling Hall of Fame, It was like that was the only thing keeping him alive. Seemed like that was left for him to do, was to have that honor. And that was his last day on, his last great day. That was a way to go. A lot of people felt like, oh, somebody knew that he didn't have long, and because that's just too weird. The next day, I mean, no one could predict that. No one could, but to have that happen the way it did, it worked out wonders. But what could have been between those two? If the Ultimate Warrior would have stayed, because I see what the Ultimate Warrior wanted. Like I said, he was so concerned with what Vince was getting. I mean, what Hawk and everybody else was getting. He felt like, look, I've been getting robbed all these years. I deserve compensation. And they were ready to give it to him. They were ready to give it to him and give him what he needed. But Vince thinks company. So eventually, he couldn't get the Road Warriors. He started creating them. He made Demolition. Had the Powers of Pain. Demolition. Powers of Pain didn't really work out as much, but Demolition did. They worked. He was like, I'll create my Road Warriors. And Demolition worked, but they weren't the Road Warriors. And finally, he had his day. He had Hawk and Animal in WWF. They were light years ahead as far as wrestling skills and ability than 90% of the wrestlers that he had. The charisma, you can't get that. What they represented. So they led to the discovery. Just that one little instance turned that into a big major event, bringing the character of the Ultimate Warrior to a major stage further than any wrestler. As quickly, it took other wrestlers many years to get to the level Ultimate Warrior got to within like 3. So that's it. That is the truth behind the actual beef. And now I'm gone. Deuces.